Welcome to another episode of Digging In, where we take a deeper look at South Dakota high school volleyball. And today it's Haley Donseth from Adrenaline Volleyball. Darren Tipton not able to join us. He's across on the other side of the state today, but always fun to talk about volleyball. We're getting into the middle of the season here. Have we learned anything about high school volleyball that you didn't know a few weeks back, Haley?
Oh gosh, have we learned anything? What haven't we learned? I think you're not paying attention if you didn't learn anything, but just so fun. We talk about just another week in South Dakota volleyball, but last week we had a huge rivalry match. And then, oh, by the way, a South Dakota player heading off to the USA Youth National Team. So just another week in South Dakota volleyball is pretty cool.
All kinds of crazy stuff happening, and we're going to break down as much as we can. But as we always do, we're going to start out with the teams that are starting to catch fire. And you've got a couple of them you want to mention. Darren put his notes together, so I'm going to let you just talk about a couple teams that are starting to heat up.
Yeah, so we're going to continue to focus on Class B because they've been a class just with so many crazy mix-ups and matches just thus far this season. And one team that's really sticking out to us thus far is Chester. As soon as they got Breck and Ewalt back, they finally got some of their height back. And they're looking so much better right now and just kind of clicking on all cylinders after winning the Big East tournament, which they had to defeat Garrettson, pretty good Class A program, and Baltic, who are two very good Class A programs this season. So they're definitely looking hot as of, like I said, Ewalt coming back.
Yeah, because they were a little bit, we couldn't figure out for sure where they were at, but now that they're full strength, they looked really sharp.
Yeah, I think they're sitting at 10-2, and those two losses are just to AA programs. Right. So definitely not a bad start to the season by any means, but they're definitely a team to keep an eye on. And then another Class B team, like I mentioned with the rivalry match last week, was Warner, just looking so clean. And I know we talked so much about their defense earlier this season, but their offense is really what struck me during that Northwestern match. They were able to score points and get it to multiple players. And we talk about Ava Nilsson a ton, and we'll talk about her later too. But they're heading into a hot streak and have a pretty big weekend this weekend as well at Bridgewater-Emery. So could be a big week for them.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. There's some really good Class B teams out there, and the cream of that crop, when they start facing off against each other like they have with Northwestern and Bridgewater-Emery, it really makes Class B a lot of fun. I wanted to mention Sioux Falls Roosevelt. This is a team that started out the year playing against O'Gorman and Washington and Lincoln, and they tested Lincoln. They were outmatched in those couple other games against the 1-2 teams, but don't let them fall off of your radar. They got hot. They went to the Southwest Minnesota tournament last week and played some pretty good programs and came out 4-1. So when you play 5 matches back to back to back to back against teams with some good storied programs, it's got to feel good to just come out with just one loss. That's a good strength for this team.
Yeah, especially against a Minnesota team who won our SummerSlam tournament in 2019 in 2020. A very, very solid team, and I think they split sets with them too. So Roosevelt is not a team to overlook, and especially in Class AA, with that parity, they're going to get another shot at a lot of these Sioux Falls teams as well. And
they're very strong in the senior class. I really like what Abby and Maya and Liz and some of these players who have been there and playing, for the last 2 years for Roosevelt are really starting to step up. And Coach Kevin Vanderwall has done a good job of giving them a tough schedule to start off with, and I think that's only going to benefit them going down the schedule as they continue to improve. They got a tough schedule in front of them too, but I think they're more prepared for it because of the way they've played over the last weekend. Let's talk about some under-the-radar stars, and one you want to mention from Rapid City Christian, just a sophomore, but she had a 13-kill match. She's been really, really good opposite Olivia Kiefer out there in Rapid City Christian.
Yeah, I think Rapid City Christian continues to be one of those programs that schedules themselves harder and harder every year. And Anna's one of those players that just accepts new roles every year. I was out there this summer, and they were questioning whether she was going to have to set this year because of the loss of Riley Freeland. And she's just become so powerful on the pin. That switch from the middle to the pin, I think, was really good for her. Made a ton of strides during this winter club season, and I think, or I know her coaches are really proud of just the way she's developed as a leader, as a player. So just a token of when you put the time in and you put the work in, good things happen. And I think you see her really striving right now.
Yeah, definitely. Another player we want to talk about is Abby Meister. And they had a statement match on Tuesday, and they came out with flying colors, and she did a good job, not only attacking, but defensively.
Yeah, and I think Abby really, during the club season, she plays libero. She is more of a defender, just really has to step up during the school season to score some balls. And she's hitting at such a high percentage for an undersized outside. I think over 244 on the season, which is amazing, counting those out-of-system balls that she has to take. So she's definitely a name that's been around but needs to be spotlighted because she does such a solid job and may not have the biggest booming kills, but she takes care of it.
Yeah, excellent job by Abby Meister. And again, there's a lot of players to talk about on Harrisburg, but we definitely want to highlight what Abby's done so far. I want to highlight what Macie Malchow's done at Washington. This is a girl, just a sophomore, who's come in as a setter this year. This offseason, Kelly Schroeder said, hey, we were looking for anybody to fill that spot of setter. We weren't sure who it was going to be. Macie raised her hand, said, put the work in, and just said, I'm going to try to play this position, and she's done a great job. She continues to grow week after week as a setter and a leader. She's got some attacks. She knows when to dump the ball over. She's got several different players she can feed on that front line, which makes it a little harder sometimes as a setter to try to decide how to distribute that ball, and she's done that well, and she's consistently wanting feedback from coaches to get better and better. So again, a team that's full of stars, somebody under the radar who's making it all click, Macie Malchow.
Yeah, and I think, what makes it even harder is that she's just a sophomore.
Right.
So she's only been around some of these players a year or two, if that. And it's amazing because, I'm not even sure I realized that she wasn't a setter until you just mentioned. So great job to her, and it's so hard to step into a setting position, especially as an underclassman. So
for a AA varsity team that's ranked number 2 in the state, that's pretty good. And we'll see how she continues to improve and help those hitters with Richardson and Walker and all those other players who make that team go. We're going to talk about statement matches. There's always a few matches every week where teams have a chance to really grab on and show the rest of the state what they're made of. And there's a couple of them this week, starting with Bridgewater-Emery, who really has their work cut out this week. If they want to be considered a top team, if they get through this week, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, so I just got actually off the phone with Coach Ernster, and she's talking about the tournament this weekend and just how exciting it is to host such a competitive tournament. And they will have the chance to either face Warner or Chester, who we talked about earlier, both being super hot teams right now. But Bridgewater-Emery, not only are they undefeated, they're 7-0, they haven't dropped a set yet. And I think Coach will tell you they haven't been totally tested to their wits' end just yet. So they're really excited to see that measuring stick this weekend. In fact, she said this will be a measure of where we're at this weekend. So really excited to see that because, again, we talk about Bridgewater-Emery and the power that Julia Weber has. Taylor Schallenkamp is having such a strong year this year as well. So that trio of teams is going to be a really fun weekend to watch.
I watched how Adrenaline Volleyball ranks teams versus how the media does, and you guys have Bridgewater-Emery a little higher than the rest of the state has them right now. This is their chance to kind of put that on display. And it's not the be-all, end-all, but it is a chance to get a good measuring stick right this part of the year. Yeah,
and I think you're exactly right. Where they are right now is going to be totally different from where they are in a couple weeks, a month or two when it comes to the state tournament. And that's what the cool part about, I think, Class B is right now, is that the teams are developing so quickly throughout the year. They're learning from maybe some losses that they're having or tough sets, and just shows the growth in and around the state.
It's a lot of fun. Another statement match time. How about Pierre? They haven't played a ton of quality opponents, but they've taken care of business so far. They have a real chance tonight to see what they're made of.
Yeah, so Pierre takes on Washington at Washington tonight. Again, both undefeated, and I think it's, like you said, it's going to be a real big measuring stick for Pierre. And for Washington, if they can continue to take care of business, both undefeated. Pierre actually follows it up with Lincoln, I believe, either this weekend or early next week. So tough stretch for them. And I think, we've talked about the chemistry of that team and the spread of their offense. This is going to be a huge test to see if they can continue to stick together when things get tough, or if they kind of end up faltering. And I think it's okay if they do. It's still September, but big measuring stick for Pierre this week.
It's going to be a lot of fun to see how they get through this gauntlet coming up. And speaking of AA teams that are able to make a statement, it's time for O'Gorman to be able to make a statement here too. We haven't talked a lot about O'Gorman. They've just been par for course doing what they're supposed to do coming out of the chute. But Bergen Riley, who we probably don't give enough recognition to, is one of the best players in the world. She's competing internationally in Mexico. She's gone with the U18 team to compete down there for the next few weeks. So O'Gorman is without possibly their best setter, possibly their best hitter, probably the best overall player in the state. We'll see how they react to that challenge.
Yeah, and I think they have a ton of pieces in the gym. Obviously, a program that's been so successful for the past couple years, but it is going to be a test when you don't have, that leader on the court. They're going to have to fill a whole 6 rotation player that you mentioned is a setter and an attacker. Oh, and by the way, she's a very good defender as well, a really good blocker. So yeah, it's going to be a huge role to fill, but I think Coach Hecht has his work cut out for him, but I think he's probably been thinking about it for a while, and been testing out some key pieces, but I think it'll be really interesting to kind of see who steps up in what different roles.
They don't have a huge challenge in the next couple of weeks as far as ranking-wise, but it's still going to be really interesting statement-wise to see who's going to step up. Broken Beck is a great player in the middle. They're really solid in the middle with Isabella Steffel and Beck, but are they going to get some more attackers? Brooke Harvest and Emily Dowling, some of these players are going to have a chance to really spotlight their talent.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be good for them too to have to take more swings in a match, not having to go to Bergen when things might get tight. So, just a good test for O'Gorman to see if they can even take another step up.
We're going to keep an eye on Bergen and how she does internationally in her competition. It's going to be a lot of fun. She'll be back in early October to rejoin the team. Let's talk about some Player of the Year candidates. As we do every time on this show, and we cycle through a lot of different players, but we want to highlight some of the best in the state. And Hadley Carlson is one of those players, and she's done a fantastic job for a team that's probably a little bit under the radar too. Arlington, who they played some fantastic volleyball earlier this year, but their best player, Hadley Carlson, is one we want to definitely highlight.
Yeah, I think Hadley Carlson and Arlington have maybe played the most amount of sets this year so far. It seems like
they play tough teams and they play them to the tilt, man.
They go max sets every single time, and they just have 3 losses, but those losses are to Northwestern, Woolsey-Wessington, Warner, some of the top 3 teams in the state right now, and like I said, bringing them 2 max sets each time. But yeah, Hadley Carlson does a really good job of seeing the court. She has multiple shots. She can hit that power shot. She can move the ball around, tip it. She's just a smart athlete and a smart player. And although she takes a ton of swings, I think she handles it really, really well. And that's why she's on this list as a player to watch, or Player of the Year watch list candidate.
Yeah, I had a chance to visit with Josie Weber, her coach, and said she's just a talented 6-position player who does it all over the court, but she's had some help this year too, and that's why Arlington's been so good. But they do rely on Hadley to make some big plays, so we want to definitely talk about her. But another one we want to talk about, Ava Nilsson, the setter for Warner, who's already been an All-State player for a couple of years. Tell us why she belongs on this list.
Yeah, I think every single year I say, I can't believe she's a freshman. I can't believe she's just a sophomore this year. The maturity that she holds as a setter is just incredible. She, when you watch Warner play, she is the heartbeat of that team. She brings everyone together. She calls the routes, obviously, as a setter, but just controls her game so well, and also the management of her team. And she has a lot on her plate, but she takes care of it so well, and is able to be offensive when she knows that her team needs a point. She can dump the ball over, locates her sets really well. So we talk about her a lot because she deserves, like I said, the recognition.
Yeah, that's a player that we've had our eye on for a while, and she continues to elevate her game. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how she does here coming up, playing against the Bridgewater-Emery or Bridgewater-Emerys of the world, and continues to play some of the best teams in Class B. Another player we want to highlight, Brynn Kirsch from Lincoln, heading to Kansas to play. She is obviously one of the best defensive players we've seen in the state, but what I really love is when her coach talks about how dedicated she is to the sport. And when she came in as the coach of Lincoln, she needed a few people to really pass that leadership on to players. And Brynn Kirsch was the first one in the gym, last one to leave, and has really helped elevate Lincoln volleyball as a whole.
Yeah, I think, you look at players like Brynn Kirsch and that the difference that they can make in a game, how frustrating it is for a player to get dug when you think it's such a good swing and you're going to get a kill on it. That can almost be as deflating as making a hitting error. So the difference, like I said, that she makes for Lincoln is huge, and I think you see that coming up in her senior year, the success that they've been able to have, because they just have a trusting libero that they always know is going to do her job in the back row, is always cheering her teammates on. I think leadership-wise, she has taken such a step up this past year in really being a positive role model and leader. They have such a young group of freshmen that stepped up this year, and I think a lot of that is because she makes them feel comfortable and is a good leader.
Including your sister, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that helps to have that connection. But a team with some definite talent, they get it done defensively, and that's why they've had a lot of long matches as well, because they're in every match that they play. The free ball, we always like to throw in an extra segment so we can catch a few things that we had didn't know where to fit in the show. And one of those things is Class A. I mean, this is, we look at the three different classes, and Class AA, a lot of power in the Sioux Falls area. Class B, a lot of power in northeast South Dakota, north central South Dakota. But Class A is pretty spread out.
Yeah, I think, obviously we have the Sioux Falls Christians of the state that are definitely a powerhouse, and Dakota Valley, who's at that southeast tip. But, some of that West River talent really booming this year in Hill City and Rapid City Christian. And even the north part of the state, Mobridge is still undefeated, Florence Henry undefeated. And then you have a team like MVP who just beat Kimball White Lake Tuesday night, I think, in a really good match. But, just it's so fun to see how talent kind of groups together in certain areas, and then in Class A it's just kind of a free-for-all.
It helps the scheduling a little bit too, because you can go to any part of the state and it's still get good competition. Winter finally got their first loss playing in the central part of the state. You talked about Rapid City Christian and Hill City and Sioux Falls Christian. It's tough matches geographically all over the state.
Makes postseason a lot of fun too. So because a lot of these teams that stay undefeated for a while won't see each other until maybe postseason. So love the first matchup being for such high stakes.
All right. Anything you guys are excited about covering in the next week that's jumps off the plate?
Well, we'll have our normal
first looks.
The week ahead show. There's so many different shows.
They get the three different shows you guys.
We're doing so much. So we'll have our normal week ahead show on Monday on our live ticket TV, and then we'll also be down in Sioux City for the Dakota Valley Sioux Falls Christian match a week from today. So keeping ourselves busy, and that's always kind of a fun match because it's been the state championship rematch, I think, for 2 or 3 years. So that'll be a really fun match to watch, and we'll be previewing it and talking to some coaches and players, so that's always fun. That'll also be on our live ticket.
A lot of good stuff coming up. Stay with Adrenaline Volleyball to cover a lot of those great matches across the state, and I think Darren will be back with us next week.
He should be, yep.
Okay, well, we should have Haley and Darren back next week from Adrenaline Volleyball. I'm Jason and Andera with Midco Sports. We appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next week.